Turn to the White House, it's time to consider your retirement and portfolio. The Wall Street Journal said gold will outperform stocks in 2025. Trump threatened BRICS countries with 100% tariffs as they move away from the U.S. dollar. Since 2022, gold has surged 40% after the U.S. seized Russia's assets. That was a wake-up call for central banks around the globe to diversify their reserves away from the dollar and into gold. Goldman Sachs warned the S&P will generate paltry returns over the next decade, and at the same time, Goldman Sachs said Trump's presidency will light a fire under gold, pushing it to $3,150 an ounce. The threat of stagflation, our national debt, tariffs, and global de-dollarization will ignite gold prices as Trump takes office. Call the proud Americans of the Patriot Gold Group today before it's too late. Mention Beans, and you'll always get best-in-class service from Patriots protecting Patriots. Patriot Gold Group has the no-fee-for-life IRA, where your IRA or 401k can be in physical gold and silver, and you may be eligible for the no-fee-for-life IRA on qualifying rollovers. Call 888-551-1465 for a free investor guide today. Patriot Gold Group is a Consumer Affairs top-rated gold IRA dealer 7 years in a row. Call 888-551-1465 and on to the show. On Devin's mom today with me, here is Victoria Perkins. Victoria,
good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for joining me today. Let me fix this. Everything is a mess for me here. But anyway, I wanted to bring you on and I want to go through what this has been like for you the past 2 years. Now it'll be 3 years next December, right?
It'll be 2 years, December 11th.
Yeah.
For the last 2 years, my son, Devin Perkins, has been fighting for his life. First, physically, emotionally, mentally, and now he's fighting from our justice system for his freedom.
Let's start this off a little different than, I think you might have thought about. Tell us about Devin. What is he like?
Devin is my reminder that I've done something right. He is a gentle soul. He is a kind, compassionate, caring kid, covered with tattoos. So a lot of people may judge that, but he is certainly my reminder that I did a good job. He's a hard worker. He's been gainfully employed since graduating from New Smyrna Beach High School. He's worked construction. He started his own videography company. He is just a well-rounded, funny, compassionate young man.
And let's start that night. He decides he's going to go out with some friends and they go to Orlando, which is about an hour's drive?
It's an hour's drive. The night wasn't planned. The girls were headed off. They were on route to Mexico, or Cancun vacation. And Ava's passport wasn't valid. So they ultimately reached out to Devin. So they headed over to New Smyrna Beach. And last minute, I believe that they left New Smyrna at about 10 o'clock at night. They were just going to head out to Orlando. Devin was designated driver. So they head out. Devin's girlfriend, Alexandra Doolin, she is a famous TikTok influencer, garnering over 1 million followers on TikTok, known as Allie D Spice XOXO. They were recognized at the restaurant that they went to. They had a VIP table. They went to 1 or 2 establishments and then started the drive home shortly after 1 a.m.
So they're on their way home. Your son did not consume alcohol, was the designated driver. What happens?
He was traveling home. And I'll just, if I could just spend a moment on the wrong way driver. Thomas Petrie and Joanna Dillon had been drinking at the Fraternal Order of Eagles.
Now, everybody's saying, how do you know this? How do you know that they
We have videotape. It is in depositions. It is in videotape where we see them leaving the bar. Joanna Dillon was shut off. And the Fraternal Order of Eagles is a clear, at least 25-minute drive on the other side, the other direction. How they ended up over here in New Smyrna, it is unknown. It wasn't fully investigated. It didn't come out.
They were driving the wrong way on the road. So
yes, they somehow got lost. disappeared for an hour. There's speculation of what they were doing. I don't know. I don't care to know. What I do know is that on their way back, they started the wrong direction. Now, State Road 44 in New Smyrna Beach is a 4-lane divided highway. And the first call to report the wrong way driver driving the wrong lanes was at 2:03 a.m. The lady who called 911, she was able to avoid him and pull over because it was at a well-lit intersection. It is right across from our New Smyrna Beach Speedway and Circle K. Following that, I believe it was approximately 2:10, maybe 2:11. I do have it on the website.
Yeah,
there was this
going there now, so like I can pull it up on screen.
The secondary caller to report the wrong way driver with their no headlights. She was traveling the correct lanes. She was going westbound in the westbound lanes and could see from across the median that the truck was traveling with no headlights. The very next call that comes in is at 2:13 a.m. and that's the call of a head-on collision where the truck driven by Tom Petrie collided with my son, Devin Perkins.
And he had no lights on, correct?
Correct.
No lights on, driving the wrong way, and collides with your son on what I guess I'm going to assume was a dark part of the road.
Oh yeah, it's desolate. There's not a single light in this particular area of State Road 44. It is unlit. There's no businesses. There's no homes. The only light that is there is on a billboard. And that evening, that spotlight happened to be out per testimony with a witness in Devin's trial, Tom DeMarsico. Directly following the impact, my son's car overturned. 2 of the passengers, Kyle and Ava, were ejected. Within just a minute or two, there was a third car that collided with a now stationary truck. And he was unable to avoid the accident because of the darkness. He was traveling home from work, a road he travels on a daily basis. He said he saw ahead of him, he saw something going on, but wasn't quite sure. So he disengaged his cruise control. And before he knew it, he slammed into the truck. His car was totaled.
So your son is obviously rushed to the hospital. The other occupants of the vehicle are sadly pronounced dead. I think 2 of them on scene and 1 at the hospital, right?
All 3. No, all 3.
All 3 on scene?
All 3. Kyle and Ava were ejected. They were in the grass median. The car overturned. Alexandra Doolin was stuck inside the automobile. One of the passerbys opened up the door, and Devin, what they described, Devin really just spilled out of the car. Gosh. He went to Halifax as a level 1 trauma patient. He was unresponsive. He was not breathing. He survived by the grace of God.
So he's at the hospital. They obviously draw blood from him. While I would assume he's unable to consent to that, obviously, because he's...
Yeah, his blood draw was at 3 a.m. or shortly thereafter. According to, I do have state's discovery and deposition. So the blood draw was at approximately 3 or 3:30 a.m.
So close to the time that he was brought there, obviously.
Yes.
Yeah. So he has several really terrible injuries. Can you explain those for folks real quick?
Oh gosh. He had 3 broken ribs. He had a punctured lung. He had damage to his spleen. It was enlarged, a shattered pelvis, which required plates, screws. And it's a very difficult area of the body to heal. He'll never walk the same. He will not run the same. Contusions from head to hip, pretty much. Glass shards embedded everywhere. His lip was nearly torn off. It was bad. It was terrible.
I'm gonna just put this on screen because you've got it on the website right now. Here is Devin after the accident.
The trauma nurse in Devin's trial, she says it's a really big deal when they arrive and Halifax is the best in the area. It's right across from the Daytona Beach Speedway. It is a huge deal. They had surgeons on standby, respiratory staff.
Okay. So that all happens. Now, in the timeline here, the gentleman who was at the scene that hit Devin, he takes off on foot, right?
Yes, he
Leaves
fled
his
the
passenger
scene,
there.
left his passenger. Actually, he walked over. He walked over to my son's car. He looked at what he just done, looked saw the people there, went back to his truck. Now I don't know this for certain, but I was reached. He took the alcohol that was out of the Toyota truck that he was driving and dumped it out, and then fled on foot.
How did you know that?
My son has a pretty big following on social media at the time, and somebody had reached his phone while in the ICU on his Instagram. And I was by his side the entire time. So I picked up his phone, and that was just a conversation that happened.
Okay. All right. So they eventually, I guess the next day, Petrie goes to the emergency room or the hospital, right?
Yes, he went to the hospital, but he was also identified from family members of the victims. He was identified on social media. Because his passenger was posting on Facebook. She wouldn't give up his name at that time, but he did, in fact, go to a hospital, I believe in Orange City, but not before seeking the advice of his attorney. And you can see from the hospital records that he refused to provide any type of samples, blood, urine, per the advice of his attorney.
Of course, because he was drunk out of his mind.
And that was at about the same time that I discovered my son Devin as a John Doe, and it was 6 hours before next of kin for the families of Alexandra Doolin had been notified, and 15 hours before Kyle Mosier's family had been notified.
So when you say that, can you explain that for folks a little bit more in depth? Like you didn't know what happened. How did you get alerted to all this? Like
Facebook, some of Devin's friends, they're in a tight knit, always talking, communicating. They'd gone to Devin's home. Somebody found me on Facebook. Somebody alerted Devin's dad to it, and we just took off. Looking for our children.
God.
Florida Highway Patrol never notified us.
I can't even. That's terrible. Like, oh my gosh, as a mom of a 19-year-old.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So now Devin obviously learns that his friends are gone. His girlfriend's gone. How is that for him?
Devastating. It truly was the love of his life, and Kyle Mosier was his best friend. Ava Fellerman in this mix, she was a new friend. She was a friend of Allie's. They had just met that evening. The girls were headed off to Mexico or on a vacation. His world was torn apart in the matter of just a couple of seconds. I mean, his life completely destroyed because of the actions of Thomas Petrie driving the wrong direction. And the thing is, it could have been avoided. When in Devin's trial, it was incredibly emotional for all of us. But the most chilling thing that I've heard to date was EMS Haley Jacks testifying, and they clearly say we were on site in less than 3 minutes.
But the cops
in less than 3 minutes, they were able to get there. They introduced in Devin's trial as well body camera footage from a responding officer who was driving 117 miles an hour to get to the crash scene. Now, why couldn't they have sent a car to dispatch? State Road 44 is wide open, 4 lanes. There's communities all around us, and all it would have taken is just one patrol car, one flashing light to stop that wrong way driver, and they didn't.
So obviously there's a lot that happens between December and then when these arrests or, indictments or come. When did you have any idea that they were thinking about charging Devin with this?
None.
So out
of nowhere. Devin has always been considered a victim. We were in contact with the lead homicide investigator, Brian Gensler. There was never any indication that Devin was suspect at all. We did question it has also come to light that Tom Petrie at some point turned himself into Florida Highway Patrol, but was turned away. You can
That's
see it on the website. There's a he
pictures.
yeah, he's identified in Florida Highway Patrol because I was there, and in States Discovery, there's not a single indication of what officer spoke with him, when he arrived, what happened.
So the morning that he's arrested, what happens? They just show up at your house? Is it in the morning? Is it in the afternoon? I don't know.
Actually, Tom Petrie was arrested at his residence at 1:30 a.m. I received a phone call from a member of the Fellerman law firm, which is a whole different story, but this is the parent to Ava Fellerman. They were Devin's civil attorney. I received a direct call from Edward Sarimboli from that firm, letting me know that Devin was being arrested. So I called my ex-husband Michael Perkins, and he said they're here now. I think he said there were 10 cops there.
When did you hire them as your attorney?
January 4th, January 4th of 2023. And the reason behind it, Ava Fellerman was a victim in the crash, and she died, obviously. They were here in Florida from Pennsylvania investigating the case. They were also tending to Ava's artifacts and what have you. They coincidentally happened to be, Greg Fellerman's a former prosecutor, but also they're civil attorneys.
So they live in Pennsylvania, but came down to Florida because they lost their daughter and obviously have this prosecutorial and civil experience. So
correct.
Got it. Okay.
Correct. So I felt in Devin's best interest. And to be honest with you, there's a lot of drop balls, even after the lack of the 911 response. The first investigating officer to this case spent less than 24 hours on the case, and then she took 2 days off. We have 3 children that have perished in this accident. We have 2 other people that are barely hanging on to life. And the investigator leaves.
With a guy that fled the scene.
With a guy that fled. Correct. So after probably 3 or 4 days, Brian Gensler was pulled in to pick up the investigation at this point. It was Officer Jadif. It was Officer Jadif who started the case, but took the time off. So us parents, of course, we're not happy, and we're making calls. And what do you mean the investigator's not following through? Yeah, right.
At all. Okay, so that first investigator, I'm assuming, is the one who writes the accident report and everything else, right?
Correct. The initial, yes.
And then she takes a day off, and they swap her 2 days off. They swap her out with someone else. At some point between then and when these arrests happen, you say, because of discovery presented in the case from the state, that Petrie turns himself in, but that's not documented anywhere. You just
There's
see
pictures. You can see the pictures. I have the pictures. There's no disputing, but there's absolutely zero documentation, and that's one of my pleas and my whole start in this case is that it needs to be explored from the very beginning. We need accountability. We need the state's discovery is flawed.
Okay. We're going to get into all that. And I know I'm going a little slow, but I want to get all this out there.
There's a lot.
I know, but I want to make sure I get it in time order, everything out there. So people, because I did the thread and I knew we were going to do this interview, and I didn't want to get so in detail in that thread. I just wanted people to understand the story, but this is crazy. So
all of our families, and I can only speak because we're the Doolin family, the Mosier family, Perkins family, Maxwell family. Unfortunately, we're united by this tragedy. And I can speak on behalf of them. None of us were aware that Devin was suspect.
So you don't even know. Okay, so Tom Petrie gets charged. I'm just going to pull this
He
up.
gets picked up at 1:30 a.m. And then Devin was picked up at 5:30 a.m.
So he's charged with 3 counts of leaving the scene of a crash with death for Alexandra Doolin, Kyle Moser, and Ava Fellerman. 3 counts of vehicular homicide for Alexandra, Kyle, and Ava. 1 count of reckless driving with serious bodily injury for the person in his car, Joanna, right?
Yes.
But they don't charge him with the injuries to Devin, your son.
That is correct.
Who's alive.
Who was left at that scene along with everybody else. And I have questioned that, particularly since Devin has made me his power of attorney. And the response that I have received, I've emailed in a court proceeding. The only response that I've ever received was directly from Mike Willard, our state prosecutor, who told me I wanted to hand him my request. Please explain to me, how do we move forward in pressing charges against Tom Petrie? And he told me that I needed to do better.
You needed to do better?
He said, do better.
Okay.
That's my response that I've received.
All right. Let's look at what they charged your son with. They charged him, and we're going to get into this in a second now. Speeding 99 miles per hour, EDR 5 seconds before impact. 3 counts of vehicular homicide for Alexandra, Kyle, and Ava. 1 count of reckless driving for Joanna, the passenger in the Tacoma that was going the wrong way on a state road with its lights off.
The passenger that handed her keys to an equally inebriated Thomas Petrie.
Which we know because there's video of them being cut off by the bartender at the place they were before this happened. There might have been one other place, but we don't know that. There's a blank in the timeline there.
Yeah. There's speculation, but it hadn't been fully explored. Although the Fellman firm did have a timeline when I spoke with Edward Ceramboli several times. My ex-husband, Devin's dad, Michael Perkins, had spoken with him quite a bit when he was here, and their theory was at the time that they went to the Cabbage Patch, which is a local bar, Mike's Corner, which is a local bar, and then stopping at Circle K, which was right in front of the State Road 44th. So that makes perfect sense. Coming back because it is so dark, going down the wrong direction.
But this is Ava's, who passed away in the crash. That's her dad that's doing that, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
It's his firm, and it is the only parent that was in alignment with our state prosecutors in pressing charges against Devin.
Okay.
Anyone who was opposed to the state pressing charges was treated like adversaries.
So this comes out of nowhere, and then you look at the report.
Yes.
Now, they don't charge either one of them with driving while intoxicated or driving under the influence. Let's just say that right there.
Mm-hmm.
But when this report is written, the officer or the person that writes it says in there that that Devin was under the influence. And it was almost, when I read all this, it was almost as though they were doing it to have a cover or a story to tell, to make it this some kind of justifiable arrest.
Exactly. And I said this once before. If I had we trusted Devin's defense team. There was 2 firms hired, 3 lawyers. We trust that people are going to do what they've been paid to do. And I can tell you with certainty, if I had looked at the evidence, I don't have a legal background, but it clearly, anyone can see it does. The state's charges, it's not justified with the results. The toxicology reports do not lie.
No, they don't. And just to tell everybody, this toxicology report says that Devin had a blood alcohol content of 0.02, which under Florida statute does not qualify in any way, shape, or form as impaired at all. As a matter of fact, it can't even be considered by Florida statute.
Yeah, Florida statute 0.05 or below considered non-impaired.
0.05 or below, and he's at 0.02. And then they also ran a screen for marijuana or cannabinoids.
Yes.
And that came back with truthfully, a very low level of cannabis in his system. Delta 9 THC is what it is. But that stays in your metabolism for at least 30 days. And,
correct.
Even that amount that was detected does not rise to the level of impairment.
And the state knew it. As a matter of fact, their own witness Their expert toxicologist, Lynette Comodillis, could not on the stand testify. That was ruled out. There was a big blunder by Robert Leventhal, who was a member.
We're going to get there. We're going to get there because it's important.
It is.
But I just want to get to one more thing before we get there. You go out, you've got this guy whose family, quote, like obviously he's after the same thing you are. His daughter is dead. So you figure
he's going to uncover everything.
Right.
Absolutely. I trusted him.
Did he stay on the case the entire time?
They were just recused from Devin's case October 15th of 2024.
So he was technically a defense attorney for your son up until
civil, not defense, but they were his civil representation.
Okay, so they were basically there. Okay, I get it. Then he is recused. Why? Because of conflict?
It's not clearly cited, but there is a formal recusal. What I find to be interesting, and I understand grief and I understand loss, and I don't understand the extent of loss of not having my son here, because Devin is breathing. Devin is alive. Devin survived the crash. But nonetheless, all four of us have lost our children by the hands of Tom Petrie. Devin's civil attorney didn't acknowledge me at all. I've spoken with this gentleman continually throughout the course of their representation of Devin, and didn't even look my way. I've also found it very strange that Edward himself, again, a member of the Fellerman team, was allowed in closed court. I have the videotape.
Okay. So me, Mrs. Investigative Journalist, now has a little siren that's like waving its way around here in the back, because that's weird. But let's put that aside for a second. What does Petrie do?
I believe he had some sort of automotive shop, some sort of business that he owned. I believe it was in Orange City.
And he gets arrested. And what is his next step? How does he handle his arrest?
He has been out on bond until he was sentenced, which was November 6th of 2024.
Did he plea?
He did plea, and there was a lot of controversy around this. The state was trying the case. He was going to go to trial, so it was state versus Devin Perkins and Thomas Petrie as co-defendants, which, as I understand, a lot of people question. I don't have a legal background, but a lot of people have questioned that. 9 days before trial was to begin, Tom Petrie entered a plea of guilt for all counts to the courts.
Okay. And he pled guilty.
He pled guilty. The court record indicated that he pled no contest.
Now, I saw this. I knew that answer already. That one. That makes it very hard for your son.
Correct.
Can you tell everybody why?
We had prepared in Devin's defense to be able to bring evidence into his trial, the true person that is responsible for the death and the cause of the accident, knowing that he would be in the court with us. We would have somebody, we could pull in from depositions, the intake nurse, the videotape surveillance that was from the Fraternal Order of Eagles. So when he is removed from that equation, it flips the script.
It's almost as though when a witness, when another person like that, so critically important, is removed, the jury is almost forced to view it as though Devin drove into something on his own.
On his own. Right.
Okay. Now let's quickly tackle the speed, and then we're going to get into the actual trial.
Okay.
And what happened there.
Okay.
All right. Devin was speeding?
Yes.
That's bad, everybody. It's bad to speed, but I will tell you, driving in Florida, don't sit here and look at me and tell me you've never sped on a Florida road. I don't even want to hear it. It's stupid. Don't even try and say, I always drive to speed. Shush. The rate of speed at which he is accused seems to be ridiculous to me. Was he going 100 miles an hour when the Tacoma struck him?
The EDR records that were introduced, and this is something else that when he gets a new trial, it'll be explored. We did not have an expert witness to combat that EDR. We actually had one witness on defense side. EDR records that were presented by the prosecutors indicate that 100 miles per hour, 99, at 5 seconds before impact. It also indicated that they do all types. They can judge the level that his foot is pressing on the gas pedal, the speed, turning of the wheel, etc. There was no increase. It wasn't like he was at 100%. He was at, I believe, 20% throttle, 20 or 24. I can verify that another time. Mm-hmm. But his EDR records indicate that he, at 2.3 seconds, I believe, slammed on his brakes, slowed the car down, did a 65-degree steer to the left.
So
I'm going to assume he saw the car. I won't ever say fact unless I have the words or something to back it up, but I'm going to assume that it was seeing the car coming at him,
which is why the right side of the car was impacted.
Correct. And Tom's EDR from his actually it was Joanna's truck, but they show his gradual drift from the left directly into Devin's lane. 5 seconds
So he wasn't
before.
even in the same lane as Devin was, driving the wrong way until 5.
No. Yes, it was a gradual bump over there.
It was a gradual drunk, I'll say it. It was a gradual drunk. Oh, what am I doing
shift
on the road? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And Devin's reaction time was better than average, is what was indicated in trial.
Because he's impaired. Stupid. I just can't. I'm sorry. I'm allowed to do that because I'm not you.
You can. You know what? This is, I said from the very beginning, I hope and pray that my son's not a scapegoat. And sure enough, it is a scapegoat because there's far too many errors that were made. And all of our kids could have been saved.
So the speed, we don't really even know how fast he was going, truthfully, right?
Well, they claim from the EDR records. Now, was it verified from our defense? Absolutely not. Was it investigated by our defense team? Absolutely not. His car, in trial, we heard prosecutors say this time and time again. Devin's car was in a secure area. No, it was not. It was out in the open.
Wait, they're saying Devin's car was in a secure area in impound is what they were saying.
Yes.
Okay.
It was not. It was in an open field. Michael Perkins, Devin's dad, went to the site. He has pictures. The car rolled over and everything was blasted. The windows were blasted. The whole roof was blasted. It was out in the elements. So, and also, and I don't know this, but since going and putting his story out, I've been reached by experts in fields from, car people questioning the validity of the EDR records, being that it was a car that was 10 years old. It was a 2014 Infiniti, being that it was in the elements. This stuff I don't know about, but it just shows another failure in our defense because we did not hire the expert.
And truthfully, that's inept by the defense team. It's completely inept. Like,
we'll add that to the list because it's growing for them.
Okay, so we're going to add that to the list. But like a normal person will be like, well, when did you realize this and why did you continue with these people? That's going to be the obvious question. Like, was it in trial? Like, he was offered a plea deal. Devin was offered a plea deal and he refused it because he's like, I didn't do anything, right?
The plea, 5 days before trial, I think it was the 18th, and Judge John Nichols, truly, I feel in my heart of hearts, she did not want to see this go to trial because, in short, it's a 50-50 toss.
Yeah.
She asked prosecutors in defense, do we have an agreement? They both said no. She called them back to chambers. They had to have been back there for about 40 minutes. They came back, pulled Devin and I to the back room, said, hey, they are offering a 10 to 20 plea. 10 to 20 years.
He's going to lose 10 years of his life at 24.
24 years old. He said no. We went back into the courtroom. She handled a couple more cases, called again prosecutors and defense up, said, do we have an agreement? And they said no. She again called them back to her chambers, and it was coincident. And I really discovered the alignment because the victims' families were on Zoom, and one family member left the Zoom meeting during this.
Wait, let me guess who it might have been.
Yes, ma'am.
Ava's dad.
Yes, ma'am.
He's your problem.
I
don't know why. I don't know how.
Again, I understand loss. He didn't know Devin. He perhaps made a evaluation of what he thought the type of person. I don't know.
I'm just stopping for a second, only because your husband, you find out that your son's going to be arrested when that guy calls you, right?
His partner, yes, his partner, Edward.
So how are they involved in this and you aren't? Like that, it just.
I do know, and it's on there on the website. I do know that they had provided information, photos, videos to the Florida Highway Patrol's homicide investigator, Brian Gensler.
Okay. I'm coming for you, Ian. Moving right along. That's a joke. It's a joke. Moving right along. So now you're in trial. Now you're going to trial.
Well, actually, let me just, if I could.
Yeah, go ahead.
I lost my train of thought for a minute. But the second time that they had come out and discussing a plea offer for Devin, and if I did not hear this with my own ears, and I promise you, I'm telling the truth, our defense team said, all right, Devin, we could possibly look at a 0 to 5 if you take responsibility for the death of Ava Fellerman. And it's kind of like the other passengers, honest to God's truth. And my son stood there and he said, I was just as responsible for Allie as I was for Kyle, as I was for Ava. And I am not responsible for this crash. And I will take 30 years on the chin before I admit to something I did not do.
God bless him.
And I'm in tears. He's in tears. The lawyers are going, take the deal, take the deal. And on paper, and state prosecutors wanted to clarify when we got back there. We offered him a 10 to 20. They have wanted to crucify my son from the very beginning, and I don't know why. They want him under the jail.
They wanted him to take responsibility for killing Ava, but no one else.
That was not on paper. That was in my ear from our defense team. And yes, ma'am, that is exactly what was said to my son in my presence. And it chills me to the bone. And also, the other families weren't even aware of a plea being offered to Devin. They were supposed to have been notified. And state's attorney did not communicate with the Doolin family or the Mosier family.
The victims.
The victims. Right. Anyone that wasn't in alignment with state's attorney treated like adversaries. They were threatened with arrest. They were not allowed to speak. They were not included in this discussion, specifically with an offer for Devin.
Threatened with arrest how?
Shortly after the arrest, Devin and Allie's family developed their bond, and after the loss of their daughter. I think Jimmy Doolin met Devin one time. So they have grown to really love him and know him as a person. They had planned, Devin was going up to Indianapolis to visit with the family after the accident and a time of healing. He's lost so much. And in order to do so, we had to get approval from the courts. And there was some conversation where they gave the Doolin family instructions and said, if you break this gag order, they could better explain it. But if they broke a gag order, discussed any evidence of the case or any communication of the case, they'd be subject to arrest.
With him when he was there visiting.
Yes, ma'am.
What were they going to do? Obviously, they weren't going to call them as witnesses because they are pro your son. So
That's exactly right. They were not in alignment.
Wow. Okay.
They were not in alignment with the state pressing charges. They were vocal with sharing their discouragement. They did not want to see him charged.
I can't even imagine.
And the fact of the matter is, they overreached because state's evidence does not support the charges of vehicular homicide for Devin Perkins.
Let's
It doesn't.
Let's get into that. Explain to me how you come to that conclusion.
Because they utilized being impaired. His blood alcohol was far below impairment by Florida
and they
law.
didn't charge him with it.
Correct. And I knew that. Just going back to when he was in ICU, the first thing I did after Florida Highway Patrol was there, I wanted a copy of the crash report. I wanted to see, I was concerned with speed. Who is not concerned if they have a 22-year-old kid? And on the, I was overjoyed. I was overjoyed because I seen on that crash report, the estimated mileage was 65 miles per hour.
Interesting.
And I just knew that if he was impaired, he would have been arrested in ICU. That's an automatic. It's just assume that they would take a blood alcohol or a drug test, and we wouldn't be leaving ICU at Halifax as a free man.
Yeah.
You see people taking
People say that, like, a general public, people who come across that, oh, well, he had some alcohol. Then you'd think they'd charge him with it. If they're going to use it as the basis of their prosecution as kind of like a rumor, because that's what that basically is. It's a rumor to taint the jury to think that he somehow drank, but for some reason, like, charge him with it then. You can't, because he wasn't.
Exactly.
So
it's dirty pool. I've never sat in a trial before, but the one time that I left to go actually obtain Devin's phone, and I had an opportunity to meet Kyle's mother, Teresa, at this time. It was 2 days after, or 3 days after the accident. The second I left his room is when Florida Highway Patrol came in to interview him. And in his interview, they asked him if he was speeding, and he said no. He said no because I saw the crash report. I told him, Devin, you weren't.
He didn't remember anything.
No, but state in trial tried to use that. He's lying. Dirty pool.
Yeah. Okay.
Dirty pool.
So then your attorneys successfully petitioned the court to disallow the toxicology report on the THC. Because it doesn't contribute at all, and the judge agrees and says, no, you can't enter that in. You can't use that as evidence, and you can't use it in this case at all, right?
Yes.
And then your defense attorney, in questioning a witness, brings it up himself. That is immediately disqualifying, okay? He brings it up himself, and then because he says it, the judge must allow the state to then use it opens up the door for that stuff to come in.
Absolutely. The state plowed through that door.
Because it's easy. Now, a couple things just from my own personal knowledge. Delta 9 is legal in Florida because it's available via hemp in gummies. That's number one. It's Delta 8 and Delta 9. They're both legal in Florida when derived from hemp. I don't know what your son used or did. I have no idea. It doesn't matter to me, truthfully. Number two, it was so little of this. Like, it's not even, like, if you ever had someone with chronic pain who took, like, a Delta 9 gummy to go to sleep at night, and then, like, a month later was drug tested, that's the amount that would be. It doesn't factor into the system. It's just the metabolite.
Correct.
So it's ridiculous. But once that happens, you can then present your son as some drug-using alcoholic when that's not the case at all.
Trifecta. Prosecutors, it was a trifecta because I don't know THC, cannabis, and that's what you heard. That is absolutely, they ran with that.
Because your attorney, after it was barred, used it in a question.
They disrespected the court. Robert Leventhal disrespected the court, disrespected Judge Nichols. He opened the door to try to paint a picture, whether knowingly or not, I don't know. I can't say, but the fact is that allowed the state. This was it was EMS Haley Jacks was the witness. It was the EMS responder who was taking care of Devin.
So tell me what happens, how they use that. What's the deal?
From that point forward, they provided case law. The defense, in an effort, tried to say, well, that didn't open the door, but it was clear. Judge Nichols did rule. It opened the door. And from that point forward, every single time, it was the perfect storm. It was alcohol. It was drug. I don't know if they use the word drugs, but cannabis and speed.
Did your attorneys ever say, why didn't you charge him driving under the influence?
No.
Wouldn't you think that would be the first question he would ask to?
I'm learning so much now, honestly, that you would think you would.
So you go through this whole trial. Can you recall any of some of the, like, obviously the jury made the wrong decision in my opinion, but what about it blew you away? Can you recall a few witnesses that testified to things that were either helpful or harmful that really blew your mind?
What blew my mind was the toxicologist. Again, this is my very first experience, but somebody had mentioned the word, it's a play. And honest to God, it is a play. I sat there. It was 5 days of trial. We had one day missed because of the hurricane. But when the toxicologist was on the stand, prosecutors asking the questions, completely scripted. It just rolled off. Their questions, her answers. Okay. When defense upon cross-examination, she got fumbled. I need my reports. Can I refer to my this, that, the other? She dug her heels in with almost snarky, if you will. And I do recall, and this kind of had me just sort of side turned, because one of Devin's attorneys, very mild mannered, David Jenker. He's a wonderful, soft spoken guy, but he was frustrated, I believe, in court. And he said, well, you work for, who is your employer? Florida Highway Patrol. And what exactly is your salary? Well, cross. there was a level of frustration with that. Same with Officer Brian Gensler. We had one witness on defense.
One.
I, my husband Dino says, if you're waiting for that Perry Mason moment, all of the witnesses were called by state. We did cross-examination. Again, I don't know much about this. This is my first rodeo. When it came down for defense to present our case, we had one witness, and then Devin opted to take the stand on his behalf. And I'm questioning, well, can't we call the witnesses back? To refresh. This is 5 days in.
Yeah.
And pretty powerful. And it's on what Brian Gensler said is, if not for the wrong way driver, none of this would have happened. Period. But he also followed it up with, if Devin wasn't speeding, if he wasn't going so fast, it wouldn't have put him at the position that he would have been in front of that wrong way driver.
Yeah, he would have been in his lane instead of not. Like, he said he would have been in his lane.
The wrong way driver would have hit the Prius behind him, the third car in the accident,
so or he would have killed it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, and there's so many what ifs. I heard that a lot with our prosecutor. But what if Devin steered and rolled over and Petrie continued down the road? We can't say what if, but we can with 1,000% certainty say, if not for the wrong way driver, the accident would not have happened.
That's
that door. That's it.
Like,
that wrong way driver caused us all to lose our children.
He may have been speeding down the road a little bit more and something could have happened, but if not for that car, there never would have been this accident.
Absolutely.
End of story.
With 1,000% certainty. That is not debatable.
So now the jury goes out and deliberates for, and I'm reading, 20 minutes?
20 minutes that we were notified of. 20 minutes because we were outside of the court.
The instructions for jury, were they given to the jury in paper form?
24 pages.
So you're supposed to believe now that the jury reads their jury instructions and deliberates on the case with no questions in 20 minutes.
Yes.
That sounds. What else?
Allegations of jury misconduct.
How?
A couple of days after, there was an eyewitness that had come forward. Her daughter was in a relationship at one point with Kyle Mosier. She was in attendance of the trial. I didn't know. I met her there. Um, she had been speaking with Kyle Mosier's mother, and apparently she knew the foreman. She recognized him. She was studying for her nursing degree and would frequent a Dunkin' Donuts in Orange City, I believe, 3 4 hours a day while preparing for her nursing. And it must have come up in conversation. And one of the requirements, and I wasn't in the courtroom at jury pool because the jury pool was so large, but to be on the jury, it's my understanding that you have no knowledge of the victims, no knowledge of the defendants, and no knowledge of the case. And Stacy LaRoche, that's her name, Stacy LaRoche had come forward and contacted our defense team and said, hey, I know the jury foreman. I discussed the case with him. So at that point, they hired a private investigator. They interviewed the witness. Our defense team at that time put a request in to our courts asking to interview the juror. We had a couple of questions. Coincidentally, that is when I made the decision to have a new team come in. A new team to.
When was this? Before deliberations?
This was after deliberations. When we were in front in the court to present our questioning, wanting for the court to grant us the motion to interview juror number one, to find out if he was aware of the case.
And they said no, right?
Yes, that was ruled no.
Why? Did he give any reason, or just
there wasn't enough evidence?
So the private investigator did a bad job?
I can't say that. They just the ruling was there wasn't enough evidence.
Okay, so you swap out your defense team after you realize, holy crap, what the hell just happened?
Yes.
Where is Devin?
He's at Volusia County Correction Facility. They revoked his bond until sentencing.
And the judge is going to sentence him. But in the interim, you've petitioned now with your new defense team for a new trial because of attorney misconduct.
Ineffective assistance of counsel.
Ineffective counsel. Yes. Because he brought evidence that shouldn't have been brought, and a number of other things. But yes. Mainly that's the center.
That's the huge one. That's the huge one, because without question, it would have, I believe that it would have been a different verdict. Absolutely. There was a lot of mishaps in his defense, but that was a huge blunder. That was the biggest bomb. And again, prosecutors, they ran with it.
So do you have, like, speculatively, any idea why they're targeting Devin so hard for this? Like, it doesn't make any sense to normal thinking people.
It doesn't. I can't pinpoint it yet. But I can tell you, I don't know why they want to see him buried under the jail. The way they treated Tom Petrie and Devin Perkins in open court. Anybody who was there can chime in on this and say it was absolutely different. They went after my son like he was a mass murderer. On his bond hearing, they requested a $1 million bond. This kid has no priors.
He got hit by a wrong way driver. Lost all of his friends, his girlfriend, the love of. This is absurd to me. I cannot. Like, never been arrested before, not under the influence, nope. Not, like, you'd think worst case, like, oh, you were speeding, son, here's, it doesn't make sense. Something is very wrong here.
There's a wink, there's a nod, there's a connection that I haven't quite figured out. Again, the difference in how Devin is treated when the guilty verdict came in for Devin. Devin is 6'2", all of 140 pounds at the time of the trial. The kid lost a lot of weight, surrounded by 2 armed guards. clinked at the desk. And mind you, defense side is packed with supporters. Our families, the Doolin family, the Mosier family, the Perkins family, the Maxwell family. And it was almost like a look, they clinked him and escorted him out. Now I attended Tom Petrie's hearing. And when his plea was accepted, he was able to stand from his defense table, not surrounded by guards, not cuffed.
Who does this man know?
I don't know. I don't know the connection.
Where was he again at that bar? What was the name of it?
Fraternal Order of Eagles.
What is that?
I don't know if it has an affiliation with law or not. It's in Orange City, but it is no longer in existence because coincidentally it burnt down about 6 months after the accident. It's a members club. So whether I don't know what it takes. Maybe somebody viewing or listening would know.
And then my next question is, whatever happened to Joanna?
She's a victim. She's a victim.
But your son isn't.
There's no fault in her handing her keys.
No. But Petrie. I'm just saying, your son is not a victim.
Oh yeah. My son, by state attorney, yeah. Devin Perkins is not a victim for nearly losing his life by the hands of Tom Petrie. And I will continue to push that and ask. And again, the only response I've ever received was from Mike Willard. Do better. He yelled it across in front of everybody.
Something is very, very wrong here.
And that's the thing. There's so many discrepancies. When I'm looking at Devin's, and I don't know what I'm looking for, but I clearly see that there's a confidential informant.
What?
There's a confidential informant in State's discovery that was never explored.
A confidential informant about what?
I don't know, because our defense response to me the 3 times that I asked him is, "Oh, that was a mistake." If you look, I don't know where it is on the website, but I have the form and you can see it's one that was typed out specific for State versus Devin Perkins.
I'm going to find it. Hold on. What the hell is
it's under look under recent news.
What the hell is going on here? Now, this is real-time reaction because I didn't know about that.
Yeah. You'll see under recent news, I think there's 2 news journal articles, and then there is I put my editor's hat on because I showcase. There's an email. There you go.
The email.
That's from the Fellerman Law Firm, and it indicates on there. I have to put my glasses. He will be forwarding the emails that I have provided to Officer Gensler, containing the photos and videos immediately.
Who is Teresa Kelly?
That is part of our defense team. Robert Leventhal's administrative assistant.
Okay, so Teresa Kelly writes, "Dear Ed," and Ed is from the Kellerman office.
Yes, correct.
"I really cannot comprehend the reason for the delay in your transmission of records per the request of Devin Perkins. This is causing major problems in my efforts to deal with issues that need to be dealt with now." He writes back, "First of all, cool it with the tone. There is no issue, as I said yesterday. I'm going through thousands of pages of records to ensure that there is no information that is specific to the estate of Ava Fellerman or the estate of Kyle Moser that cannot be released to you." What? "Also, since we spoke yesterday, I have had my paralegal, for your convenience, go through and identify in a Dropbox any and all records that our co-counsel has on the estate cases to make sure we're not missing anything. I'm not at my office now, but will be so early tomorrow morning, and finish going through the file and provide all records that are specific to Devin. If you have a problem with this, I suggest you act in a professional manner and call my cell instead of sending non-productive, threatening emails. I will be forwarding the emails I sent to Officer Gensler containing photos and videos immediately." What is he even talking about with that?
We don't know. I don't know. And at the time, again, this is Devin's. There you go. You see it.
Hold on.
Um, you can expand, you can click to enlarge the form itself, but I did question. I questioned several times. What is this? This is something that we need to explore. Who is the confidential informant and what information has been released?
What do you need a confidential informant for?
There shouldn't be, with the exception of potentially information provided by that firm when they were here investigating.
What is going on? Oh my.
And I will remind everybody, this is Devin's civil attorney. And when Devin was arrested, April 7th of 2023, we reached out to them because we knew that they had been here and said, please provide us with everything that you have. There might be something in your discovery that is going to assist us.
Which they did you pay them? Were they on retainer?
No, not civil.
But did you have an agreement with them?
Oh yeah, there was a formal contract. There was a formal signing, well, January 4th of 2023.
They're required to turn it over to you. It's not
right.
Even
Right.
Yeah.
But it's just one of those things, after the fact and looking more closely at state's discovery and saying, okay, somewhere there's pieces that are missing and there's pieces that need to be explored. If you look at the 707 charging affidavit, and Officer Gensler is the Florida Highway Patrol officer who signed Devin's charging affidavit. And right in that, there's discrepancies where it indicates, the speed limit, Orange County, Volusia County, 60 to 70 mile an hour, Mr. Perkins going 30 to 40 mile an hour over the posted speed limit.
But they didn't, here it is. I have it. You can read all of this, and I couldn't believe what I was reading either.
It's black and white. You cannot debate the information that I'm putting out, and it does not pass the smell test. It was a high profile case. There was a lot of mistakes made from 203 at that first drop 911 call, and that followed through investigation.
What else? You said you made mention there were other things that might have kind of flagged you as crazy. What else other than the confidential informant that we've learned about now?
I guess the continued way that they pursue Devin and really wanting to put this child away when it is so clear that causation is clear. They did not back off. They would not come forward with a plea agreement until the Judge Nichols really held their feet to the fire because she didn't want to see him go to trial.
So let's pretend that you're granted a new trial. You're obviously going to bring in experts and all of that. But what if
it's game on. It's game on. There's nothing that will be, honestly, when Devin is granted a new trial, because I can't imagine that they are going to rule against it. I have the videos. I've posted them publicly. I'm going to continue to post them publicly. I can't make this up. It is out there. You can see the opening of the door. You can see Dan Maguro say, hey, he opened the door. You can see the Honorable Judge Nichols say, yeah, I believe that they did. They took a break. They came back from court. And this is one thing that it's probably what you're referring to is the video footage that I have that I've been reviewing was a closed court session. And it was before court resumed where they were discussing and debating over the allowance of the THC. And in the back of the courtroom, a member of Fellerman Law Firm is sitting in a closed court. None of us were available to be there. And I question that. There's so many things that I question.
So someone from the law firm that just basically condescendingly scolded your attorneys on the defense side criminally is sitting in the back of the court watching a closed... It's a closed session. It wasn't open to the public, but why is a member of Fellerman Law Firm there? And still at the time, they were still Devin's defense or civil defense people. But there's a lot of unjust in this case. And it starts with
our state attorney did not have the basis to charge my son so harshly, because two of those three factors you can disqualify right out the gate. So if you're going to charge him with something, charge him with speeding. Make it appropriate consequences. You know,
that's debatable. I wouldn't even say that, truthfully.
Yeah.
Because it's debatable. Like, the reaction time that he had, I wouldn't even say, I don't believe any of that at this point.
I don't ever want to come across as the person who my son never did anything. You know what I mean? So I try to keep it open. But
yeah, I get it, because you're fair and honest. And I get what you're saying. But me as an outsider from from the outside, thinking of this from a legal perspective, truthfully, you don't know that he was speeding. You don't.
It's a different, when we get granted the new trial, it is a whole different game. And I question them to go so far as to try to charge him again with vehicular homicide, because this will be investigated and that's what it needs. It needs to be above our 7th district. And I can tell you right from the very first, when they were arguing over what his bond was, Dan Magiro, Mike Willard, oh, it's not me, it's my boss. It's a good old boy country. You know, our prosecutors, our defense, they all play in the same sandbox. They talk. You know,
I've learned that. $1 million bond.
Absolutely no priors. 22-year-old kid, gainfully employed, living at home with his dad. Yep.
A few things. What do you need from the general, like, what are you looking for? Now, I'm going to reach out to some of the other victims' families, because you guys are very much aligned with not wanting Devin to have to suffer a consequence for something that is clearly not his fault. I mean, this is terrible. It's an injustice. It makes me sick.
They have criminalized a victim. They have disregarded my son, Devin Perkins, in every fashion. They're not holding the person responsible for nearly killing him accountable, because they give no charges, and yet full pedal wanting to throw him under the jail cell. They want prison time.
What do you want from getting this story out there clearly?
Awareness, sharing the story. What I have done, and I hope at some point it makes a difference, because people can go out to the website. You could either compose your own email or just submit a form. And what we're asking for is an unbiased investigation. I want somebody outside of our 7th district to look at all of the facts of the case, make sure that everyone was charged properly, make sure that Tom Petrie receives charges for injury to Devin, and provide my son a fair set of circumstances.
He shouldn't be charged at all.
He shouldn't.
The website she's referencing is where everything is so carefully documented and well done. It's called savedevin.com. I'm going to put it on screen real quick. SAVEDEVIN.com. I asked you this yesterday. I said maybe you'd want to have something like this ready, because I want to reach out to your son and give him a hug.
You can see the sign above me.
Oh, yeah, the same sign.
And I do have shirts for my local folks. Somebody, and I don't even know who, somebody picked up this story and sent me a message on TikTok. It says, I have some shirts for you. This is not of my doing. This is the general public. So I do have Save Devin shirts.
I would agree. They are corrupt.
Okay. So anybody locally, I'm happy. Oops, lost you.
That's okay.
I am happy to distribute that. There is a printing company up in New Jersey where people can buy them if they want. The biggest thing is to share the story. And if you know someone that can make a difference, that can help to get this looked at, they can send an email directly to our decision makers. I have on there, on the form, a message to our governor, our attorney general, our state attorney, our prosecutors, the Florida Highway Patrol officer that blatantly lied on his charging affidavit, and his supervisor. Currently, we are at nearly 1,000 direct emails, and I think change.org.
It says 4,375 have contacted officials.
Yes, it's a combination of the change.org petition that was started by one of Devin's friends and the direct emails.
Okay. Everybody out there who's seen this, I mean, we've been detailed in this show. We've been very detailed. And if this isn't enough for you, go to the website. Everything's documented. And if that's not enough for you, you can go to the Volusia County Court website and view this case docket on your own. It's incredible what's going on here.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, another harrowing thing. Tom Petrie, who pled guilty and who has been sentenced,
Yeah.
has now changed his mind.
Oh, he's changing his plea now?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm all over the place, but yes, there is a motion. He does have a hearing coincidentally before Devin, although we were requested.
He's going to say he's not guilty?
Yes, he is recusing his defense attorney, Mr. Zielinski. They're citing irreconcilable differences. And Tom Petrie was not aware of the consequences of him entering a plea of guilt to our courts. So he's going to try to vacate his plea and vacate his sentence.
He's going to use Devin's conviction. This is sick.
But he could have before sentencing. I don't think that he expected, and the state was looking for life. And what he was given was 37 and a half years per charge, and he was allowed to serve it concurrently.
So he'll be 90. So.
Yeah. He did it. He single-handedly has destroyed not only our families, but his own family. I feel terrible for everybody involved. And I'm going to go right back to, if one police officer was dispatched on that 911 call at 2:03 a.m. They had 10 minutes before the accident, and all it would have taken is that one officer to get there and stop that car.
Can we send Devin letters?
Yes. You will need to go out to smartinmate.com.
I'm going to write it down. Go ahead.
And he's in Volusia County Correctional Facility. It is Devin, Devin, Perkins, Perkins. They'll probably ask for the birth date. It is 07/20/2000.
Oh man, he's born 3 days before me.
Aww.
But I was born in 80. I'm a little older than
a little bit, just a tiny bit. With that, you'll be submitting a request. Now he'll have the opportunity to accept or deny. I'll give him a heads up when I talk to him that he can expect maybe some people to be reaching him. I do tell him the outpouring of support that he has that's beginning to garner. And this, I'm sure, is just going to put it on the map. There's no level of thanks that I can give to you for the universe planting you, sharing his story, because you're an angel.
Oh, okay. I love you. I can't.
You are giving me a voice where I don't have a voice, and the unjust in my son needs to be fixed.
I agree with you. And so I told you, when are you expecting a decision, hon?
We have a motion. We are hoping for a bond to be reinstated for Devin. Tom Petrie was allowed to be out on bond until sentencing, not the case for Devin Perkins. I don't know if we will get one before his next upcoming court date, which we do have January 31st of 2025.
What is that for, sentencing?
No, ma'am. That is for our new team will present their motion and request for a new trial.
You have space in your house for a visitor?
Yes, ma'am. I got you.
Think you might have one.
I hope so. I hope I have a lot. I hope a lot of people come out and support. And that's the thing. We're not looking. It's just not right what they've done. They've overreached. They're embarrassed. They should be embarrassed, because failure, if we're going to hold people accountable, I'm here to say, let's start with everybody who had a play everybody who had a part in us losing our kids, and all your dirty hands, and there is dirty in this case, need to be washed.
Amen.
Amen.
Well, listen, I know that I would be fighting just as strongly for my child if I were in your shoes, and I would want other people to help me and stand up and do that too. And I'm going to do that as loud as I can scream about this. It is just so wrong, and I can't sleep knowing that this could just happen and nobody will do
Could
anything.
happen to anyone. Anyone.
It's terrible. We're going to stay in touch. I'm sure I'm going to have you back again.
Okay.
I told you I'm going to send this to you. You can put it wherever you want. I'm going to give you the raw file. Take it, put it wherever you want, because I think we did a good job of really going through this in a very methodical fashion so that anybody who doesn't know what happened can listen.
You laid it out. I mean, it really, that is the story. I've just established a Facebook page for Devin. So if you search Save Devin, the X, which I just discovered yesterday when somebody told me that you posted about it, I'm like, oh, I got to figure this out. So his page is being verified on here. Under TikTok, I have my personal page where I started because his fan base was there. So if you all can show me some love and go out there and find the pages, find the Facebook. Facebook is
on X. It's at @save_Devin. What is your TikTok? Your TikTok is
Victoria. I think it's Victoria Max 222. If you go at the top of the website, it'll display it under.
Oh. Here we go. Perfect. There you are.
Okay. And then the Facebook, which is a great local push, because I know that our prosecutors and our people that need to hear the story, they're out there watching what's going on. So if you all can get out there and give a like, give a share, help spread, because that's the biggest thing. People knowing the facts of the case can see it is corrupt.
Everybody, you have your marching orders. I know that the time was a little off, so the audience was a little bit off today, but that's okay. We'll get this out to as many people as possible. Let's make noise about this. Everybody out there, let's make noise about this case. Let's get eyes on it where they need to be. And thank you guys for all listening. Any last things you want to say before we go today?
Oh, just big hearts to everybody who is listening, because that's all we want. And we are not, all of it, we are not losing another child by the hands of Tom Petrie. It's just not going to happen. Devin Perkins will be coming home.
He will. I think he will. All right. Well, everybody, share this with your friends, please. And it's not.
Thank you.
You're welcome.